Does that necessarily mean that all the economics of running a neobank would any day be significantly different or rather better than the economics of running a private bank today?
Absolutely, with one caveat. So the economics of a bank today heavily relies on a regulatory license, right? So basically what RBI does is gives you a license. It's very hard to get a license. But once you get a license, essentially you are sitting on it, right? At that point, you are too big to fail. You would have not seen, you'd have heard of Punjab National Bank and Yes Bank. They're in trouble, right? But basically the regulator steps in and rescues them. Same thing as happened in the US, right? Citibank, everybody got rescued in the US because financial systems are considered too sacred to fail. But it comes with a price. So the benefit that they get with a license is that essentially they get to print money in some ways, right? So they get to borrow money. So the way it works is once you have a license and I can get Nivedan and me and 10 other people to deposit money, the banks will take that and leverage it, right? Like up to 10x, like maybe higher than that. So essentially that's the free money, right? So essentially they'll take your money, right, and borrow like 10x of that, right? At a absurdly, that's the bank repo interest rate. I'm kind of simplifying it, but not exactly the thing, but broadly simplifying, they're borrowing the money from the central bank. And now instead of the 10 rupees that you and I deposited, has suddenly become 100 rupees. Right?
Yeah.
They lend the 100 rupees at like a much higher interest rate and they make the money. So remember, they pay a savings account on interest to you or FD, only you and me, only on the 10 rupees. Right? So the interest rate on the remaining is much cheaper. Wow. So it's a very simple business model. That's it. That's the business model, right? For all the banks. There are a few other business models like transaction charges and all that have come down now in India. So in the sense of the business model, that is still the business model, right? So it's, as MoneyTap or Freo or whoever else, we need to lend money to make money. But the banks have a competitive advantage because the cost of capital is much cheaper. And the reach is cheaper because they have a license, right? So what will happen, and it's bound to happen in the next few years, is that the licensing will open up. Right? They have to do it carefully, so it's understandable that RBI doesn't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry to get a license, right? Then otherwise there'll be scams like every week, right? And the public will lose trust in the banking system. So there's a lot of logic to it. It's not like it's just they're being like bureaucratic. That's not true. But at the same time, the consumer needs pressure is very strong, right? So the fact that again, like we come back to you and I talked about, like you when did the last time you walked into a bank building, right? Probably like very long time, if any, right? The chances that my daughters would walk into the bank building is like zero, right? They don't want to, right? They have to be dragged into it. So what is the point in having a building, right? If you have India is young and all this population for the next 10 years, nobody's going to walk into a building. What are you going to do with the building, right? And all the people sitting in there. So this has to change, right? The pressure will change, the dynamics, all of this. It's a matter of time. So the thing will evolve. Some kind of licensing will evolve. So to answer your question again, the business model is the same fundamentally, right? Because people need credit. They need credit.
But you won't have the overhead costs like they have. If Freo and MoneyTap, you guys get a banking license the day it opens up, you will have a significantly competitive advantage over them, and they will take decades to catch up with this technology and that experience that you deliver.
They will never do it. They just can't do it. They just don't have the DNA. People used to ask me when I started, like, what about this bank doing it? And I'm like, look, if I cannot as an entrepreneur beat a bank, right? I should be hanging my head in shame and like not start a business, right? Like, I mean, you have to somewhere you have to be creative, to your point of, if you are not creative, you shouldn't be starting a business.
So banks are the Goliath in your business.
Absolutely. All the time.
No, that's amazing.